Hello everyone, I am Rishita Sarkar and I have launched this YouTube channel because I want to review some of the books that I have read. Basically, I will be acting as a literary critic here. My objective behind starting this channel, Bibliophila, is that I want all of us to come together and read more books. Young boys and girls today get diverted from good literature. Good literature also has its own advantages. It enriches our thoughts and urges us to make the world a better place to live in. So let's go. About a novel Nirmala written by Munshi Premchand. Munshi Premchand, as we all know, was a freelancer in Urdu. He worked greatly for the emancipation of women, Dalits, poor farmers and other weaker and minor sections of society who are socially as well as economically subjugated. His books highlight the social crisis in his time. So Nirmala talks about a very well-accomplished adolescent girl who is married off to a much older man owing to her father's tragic demise. Prior to that, she was supposed to be married off to a very rich and handsome man, but that marriage was called off because her father died and her poor mother did not have as much dowry required to marry her off to a suitable family. Nirmala has this great sense of disappointment because she feels that she is being thrown out of her father's house and that her father's house is not her own. If it were, she would not have been thrown out against her will. Nirmala's present husband tries to impress her with different kinds of ornaments, gifts and precious articles. This man has 3 sons from his previous marriage, the eldest of which is about the same age as Nirmala, and he still goes to school, which Nirmala had never set foot in. Unlike many other women in her situation, Nirmala does not give him her heart, give her husband her heart. In spite of all her troubles, she accomplishes all her household duties and looks after the children as her own sons. As was the custom in those days, to disregard one's stepmother, the boys began plotting ways on how to throw her out of the house. In addition to her own miseries, the neighbours began feeding ill thoughts in the children's mind regarding their stepmother. On hearing those, Nirmala's husband began scolding the sons for petty reasons which the son perceived to be their mother's doing. Nirmala's carefree childhood was kind of locked up inside her. She missed those days where she used to enjoy herself with her sister. So she began to seek company in her husband's eldest son. She began learning some English from him and they had great friendly conversations and she began to be happy in his presence. Unfortunately, one day Nirmala's husband saw this typical friendly conversation between them and perceived this as something else because he was a thoroughly insecure person. He forbade his son from coming near Nirmala. When the son came to know that his father thinks so lowly of him, he left home and began staying in his school's hostel. He was so sad that he neglected his studies, his health, and he slowly began falling ill, and one day he died. Nirmala's husband was so heartbroken at this because he was so proud of his eldest son. Nirmala tried to convince him to be happy once again, but in vain. Nirmala's second stepson also died in the same way. The remaining third son was subjected to very harsh treatment because Nirmala herself was under great depression and anxiety. And one day the third son left home with an ascetic. This so-called ascetic was in fact a traitor who lured away the third son away from his town and from his family. Heartbroken, Nirmala began seeking company in her best friend Sudha. As it happens to be, Sudha's husband was the same man whom Nirmala was supposed to marry earlier. When Nirmala came to know about this, she felt shocked, and one unfortunate day Sudha's husband began making ill advances towards her. Nirmala thought that it was a great insult to herself, her character and her family. She stopped going to Sudha's house and they broke off their friendship. She cried all day and she felt very ill, and one day at sunset the last rays of life left her soul and she died. Thus ending the tragic tale of a girl who was married off to a much older man just because she is poor, just because she doesn't have enough money. Her mother had married her off to a stranger, an old man, because keeping an unmarried girl at home was equal to committing a crime. Premchand had written this book in the early 1930s. Let me remind you that much has changed nowadays, but still women are oppressed and subjugated in lower sections of society. They are still not given education, they are still married off at very tender ages, and widow remarriage is still looked down upon. We have to see to it that women are respected and they are in a position which is equal to men. We have to give them education, we have to strive so that they may lead a life which is better than the present life that they lead. Literature not only helps us to know what crisis prevailed in the past, but also it provides us with the inspiration to see the crisis that is prevailing in the present society. It may also help us to write books or comment on the present evils that are present in the society. So in the meantime, I request you to read this book and suggest books on similar ideas and similar thoughts in the comment box. If you have liked this video, you may also like, share, comment and subscribe. I may come up with analysis on different books on another day. Thank you.